So I'm going to take you on a journey that starts in Noonan, Georgia in 1920. Now the picture behind you is a picture of me posing for a photo shoot for the University of Washington Alumni Magazine last year. But the path there was a long one. So in Noonan, Georgia in 1920, my father, Willie P. Strickland, was born there. Rural Georgia, the Deep South. An African-American man who joined the Army as a teenager to send money home to his family. He was actually stationed in Tacoma during World War II. He ended up being stationed in Korea, where he met my mother, in Min Kim. We moved to Tacoma when I was a little girl. So there I am in the front in white tights. You see, I still like tights. And I always say that every story kind of just starts with when you were a kid. When we look at children, we think about promise and opportunity. When we look at a class full of children, we look at what's possible. And I can tell you a little bit about most of the kids in this picture. A few of them are no longer with us. One lives in rural Washington State, loves his guns, loves hunting. Another one is a good friend of mine to this day, and she's an electrician in Seattle. And there I am in the front row with that, one of my favorite dresses when I was in kindergarten. But this is a story about what is possible and what we imagine. It's a snapshot of a young girl in a period of time. And from there, I will experience childhood, adolescence, being a young woman, being a full-fledged adult. And what I will experience during that time will include being bullied on the playground when I was 5 years old and having my dad put me in karate lessons. And within a few months, didn't get bullied so much on the playground. Not because he wanted me to go out there and start fights, because he wanted to make sure I could always defend myself. Going to high school. When I was in high school, I would watch the cheerleaders during basketball games, and I was mesmerized by them. And I was pretty tomboyish at this time, but I said, you know what? I'm going to take a risk and try out for cheerleader. And I made the squad. And the conversations that took place when I was a young woman always involved the question, is it possible for me too? Is it possible for me to be an honor student? Yes, girl. Yes, you. Is it possible for me to attend the University of Washington? Yes, girl. Yes, you. Is it possible for me to go to London for 6 months as an exchange student to a place I'd never been by myself? Yes, girl. Yes, you. It was about the idea of taking risks and doing things. Now, as a kid, I was an introvert. Believe it or not, I still am to this day. Because you're on stage all the time, because you have a big personality, it doesn't mean that you aren't introverted. And sometimes when we think about people in positions of power and authority, we make assumptions about them. And we give people labels. And sometimes when people hear labels enough, they start to stick. I think about this particular quote that I found, which really inspired me when I thought about running for public office, and I'm going to read it to you. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And I use that quote for many reasons. As I said earlier, this is not about someone who's shy and doesn't do anything. You can have a big personality and be very accomplished, but you're still within the boundaries of what makes you comfortable. And this quote challenges us to do the things we never thought were possible. For me, that was running for office. The first time I was approached about running for office, my immediate answer was, no way, no how. I'm not going through all that drama. Not having people get up in my business, not having people talk trash about me, not putting myself through all that. But then it came back to the place I come from. Willie Paul Strickland, born in Noonan, Georgia in 1920. In Min Kim Strickland, born in Seoul, Korea in 1929. survived the Japanese occupation of her country, survived the Korean War. It wasn't about me anymore. It was about the people who came before me, who raised me, who opened doors to make sure I had opportunity. I had a responsibility to do the right thing, because as my mother said to me one day, it's not about you. So should I run for mayor? Yes, girl. Yes, you. So when you actually win an election, like running for mayor, you say to yourself when you win, oh, now I got the job. It's one thing to campaign and make promises and talk about all the amazing things you want to do, and those are heartfelt and sincere and real, but then you actually get the job. And the weight of responsibility of being responsible for 200,000 people, for their safety, for their well-being, for the basic essentials, to make sure the water is clean, the lights get turned on, the garbage gets picked up, there are jobs here. All those things are huge responsibilities. The appearances that people want you to make, to visit schools, to visit events, a lot of huge responsibility. But I tell people this, if you're willing to blossom, you will take the responsibility with joy, even the parts of the job that may not be the part that you love the most. When it comes to being in a high-profile position, or anything you do that's big and bold, you will have critics. If you don't have critics, you're not doing anything. And when you have critics, it means that people often feel insecure. When you have critics, often it's not even about you, it's about their insecurity and their drama. So take the criticism in stride, hold your head up, keep on rolling. The one thing I've learned about being mayor of Tacoma, my beloved hometown, is that we can do big things. We can dream big, we can be big. If someone had asked me back in 2010, when I first became mayor, do you think you're going to go to the White House and meet the President of the United States? Probably would not have thought so. But guess what? Yes, girl. Yes, you. I've been to the White House 6 times. Not visiting President Barack Obama. I just want to make sure I'm clear about that. Another opportunity that we had is talking about how we can raise our profile as a city. The president of China came to Tacoma on his way to Washington, D.C. He didn't have to stop here, but we made a case through our Sister City program, through his history with Tacoma, talking about the importance of education, and he came to Lincoln High School. That is still a really big deal. And this is about doing the impossible yet again. Now, in all these things I described to you, getting bullied on the playground and taking karate lessons, deciding to try out for cheerleader, going to the University of Washington, being an exchange student, running for mayor, I am acutely aware that I was able to take risk and do those things because I have some privilege. I totally know that. And it's easy to say to some people, take a risk, go for it. Well, if you don't have the comfort of privilege to catch you when you fall, you may not be able to do that. So I'm fully aware of even the privilege that I have. However, there are opportunities that we cannot pass up as we think about what is possible. As women, as a woman of color, I am not always part of an economic, social, and political system that wants me to be in a position of authority and leadership. That's a fact. But you have to find people to support you, you have to be willing to take the risk, and you have to be able to say to yourself, yes, girl, yes, you. So every single woman in this room, I guarantee you, there is something you have contemplated, there is something that you have tried to do, there is something you are going to do again. Take the risk. What's the worst thing that can happen? You'll fail, you'll learn, and you can try again. Failure is really one of the most important things you can learn in this life. I tell people that if you want to be successful, you had to have had failure a few times in your life. That's the absolute truth. But as a society, we are raised to be afraid of failure. Fear is the most powerful emotion that keeps us from doing what we know we should. And I will tell you, every day I do things that scare me. Every single day in this job, I do things that scare me. But you have to ask yourself, what is the risk if you do nothing? Doing nothing sometimes is far more risky than taking action. When you reach a certain age, like I'm, you put together a bucket list and you think about all these things you want to do one day. And my list is extensive. I want to kiss my husband at midnight at the Empire State Building. I want to take a river cruise, all these amazing things I want to do. But one thing is absolutely true. People don't regret what they do. People regret what they never tried to do. We cannot live our lives with regret. It's okay to have fear. Fear is part of life. It's how you master living. You're not alive if you don't feel fear. But understand that we have the opportunity to take risks every single time. As women, we are not socialized to take risks. As women, we watch a very hyper-masculine definition of what leadership is supposed to look like and act like. Well, leadership comes in many forms. It's soft, it's hard, it's fierce, it's gentle, it's all those things, all the good things that we are. And don't let anyone tell you that being female and having stereotypical female traits is something that is a detriment to you. In fact, I tell people women are more strong, more resilient, and more fierce when it comes to going to battle. I believe that is the absolute truth. And imagine how productive the US Congress would be if half of Congress was female. Imagine the paid sick leave and family leave policies we would have that would match the rest of the civilized world. Imagine minimum wage going up the way it should be. Imagine how we would treat our diplomatic issues around the world. More women need to be in politics, more women need to be in positions of leadership, and we have a responsibility to each other to support each other. So I'll end with this quote. Intuition is that feeling you have when you know something just ain't right, or when you know something feels right, when the facts around you tell you you should do something else, but something deep inside your soul tells you that you need to go a certain way. And sometimes you are that lone voice using your intuition. Trust it, use it, embrace it, because there is something great inside of every single woman in this room. Do you have the power to do what you want to do? Yes, girl. You do. Thank you.